Okay, you have a lot of the questions that I want you to think about when you look at these new women images in the module. I've put them there, but I just sort of wanted to kind of emphasize as you're looking at these images to kind of think about some of these things, because this is what we call the new woman, and we're going to see it even like a newer woman we're going to see when we get to the 1920s. But here at the turn of the century, this is a kind of a bit of a crucial change for women in terms of some of the possibilities. They're going to get access to college. Now again, we're talking about white women, we're talking about women that are middle class, so this doesn't include huge segments of people. And again, we're looking at the ideal. Just like in Godey's, everyone was white, everyone was small. We have a similar thing here in these images. I'm looking at them on my computer. But she is different than we saw before. So again, in the images that you have in your textbook and the few images that I put on the module for you, no, she's not inside. She's outside in all of these images. Whereas in those Godey's image, she was always inside. Note who she's with in these images. In the Godey's images that we looked at before, she was surrounded, she was always inside, and clearly like in a domestic space inside. She was always surrounded by her children, by her husband. She's riding a bicycle. She's playing golf. And the other image in there, she's at the beach. Now, bathing suit looks a little different probably than what you might wear to the beach, but this is pretty different. And they still have those small waist, but there's more movement here. Part of the small waist is that they're still drawn, but there's more movement here, right? There's a little bit more like freedom. Her hair is freer, looser. Her clothes are freer and looser. You can kind of more see her shape than you could before in Godey's. And importantly there with the bicycle, when you're riding a bicycle, you can't wear a corset. And so this dress reform that women had worked and worked and worked for decades basically just goes away, because the bicycle became so popular so fast that that's how we kind of got that dress reform. My notes are at school, so I don't have the direct quote, but there's this really great quote in one of my notes about how it was like the Boston Rescue League said something along the lines of, because this became really popular, everybody got into this. And the Boston Rescue League, who would help women that had like fallen into prostitution, these so-called fallen women, they noted that a significant portion of the women that they helped had been bicycle riders at one time. So it's still a little controversial, this bicycle riding, but it's hugely, hugely popular. And so I gave you an image. I have actually got a photo off eBay of a woman posed next to her bicycle. This is how important it was. And again, if you think about just the freedom, not only not wearing a corset would have just been, I can't imagine how liberating that must have felt after having worn a corset for so long, but just the freedom of riding a bicycle. If you ride a bike, or if you remember when you learned how to ride a bike, it was liberating. Like you're literally feeling freer in terms of the movement, and also in terms of how that feels, hair and clothes and what have you. There's also another image of Frances Willard, who you're going to meet later in the module. There's an image of Frances Willard in your text trying to ride a bicycle for the first time. One thing to think about, sometimes students bring up with a bicycle, those of you that are Wizard of Oz fans, the bicycle figures into that story as well. Now, it's a little bit later, that story is set a little bit later, but students always, when they see that Frances Willard picture, sometimes they think about the bicycle in Wizard of Oz. All right, if you have any questions, you can put those in the module. I hope you're doing well. Take care.